It's 1997, and a lot of big guns came out that year. What's up, everybody? So let's take a look at the movies that came out in 1997. Let's start off with I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I know it gets a little bit slightly overshadowed by Scream, but I think it's on the level. It maybe didn't really do to the horror genre what Scream did, but I think as a horror movie itself, without taking away the impact that Scream actually made, I think these are about neck and neck for my taste. Titanic, which I'm not a really big fan of, but I respect the movie itself, although it's not one that I would watch on a regular basis. Good Will Hunting, which I have seen many, many times, and not anymore, but I think shortly after Robin Williams passed away, this was, a bittersweet movie for me to watch because he's just so incredible in it. Life is Beautiful, with Roberto Benigni, an Italian movie that won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, and he won the Oscar for Best Actor. It's a heartbreaking one. It's one of those World War II movies that is heartbreaking and yet somehow found a way to be funny in a completely plausible way. The Devil's Advocate, which for a long time was my favorite non-Godfather performance by Al Pacino. He's just amazing as John Milton in that movie. Boogie Nights, which it's kind of like Titanic to me. I respect it. It's such a well-made movie. It just doesn't do it for me. But, I've seen it maybe two, three times, and it's like, all right, this is a good movie, but not one that has like really high rewatchability for my taste, but it's definitely high quality. The Rainmaker, which doesn't get talked about enough in the Grisham universe. You always hear about A Time to Kill and The Firm and maybe even The Client. But The Rainmaker, it's really, really, really good. Great performances by Matt Damon and Danny DeVito. Great, dynamic between the two, with a nice small role by Mickey Rourke. Starship Troopers, LA Confidential, The Game, which I love The Game so much because David Fincher did what I thought was kind of an impossible ask, is to deliver a movie as good as Seven, as interesting as Seven, because Seven is iconic. It's one of those movies that you need to put it on one of those lists of the best movies of the 90s. And now how are you going to follow that up? And then he comes out with The Game and you're like, okay, this guy is somebody. This is before he actually became David Fincher. He had Alien 3, which was the debacle that it was. Then Seven, and it's like, all right, now how are you going to follow it up now? And he absolutely did. Men in Black, Jackie Brown, which I love Jackie Brown so much. I don't know, it's still not my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but I think it's one that probably needs to be talked about a little bit more. And I'm with Quentin on this one. I think Pam Grier got robbed of her Best Actress Oscar. Con Air and Face Off came out this year, so you can kind of say it was the year of Nicolas Cage as far as, blockbuster movies are concerned. And it's such an interesting career choice because, he'd been making great movies, great performances, but he didn't really venture off into the, big budget blockbuster movies until The Rock. And he really didn't start that trend until after he won his Oscar. So he really parlayed that statue into just check after check and awesome action movie after another. Tomorrow Never Dies, another great Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie. Gattaca, which is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Andrew Niccol, he doesn't do a lot of movies, but when he does, man, especially Gattaca. Gattaca's it's so great. The world building, and I think the movie's like about an hour and 45 minutes, and the first hour of it is only world building. We don't really get into the actual plot of it, but it's fascinating and it's thought provoking. One of the great science fiction movies of the 90s, in my opinion. As good as it gets, I think that's the movie that nabbed Jack Nicholson his final Oscar. Austin Powers, the first one, I just, it's the only one for me. Don't get me wrong, I love The Spy Who Shagged Me and Goldfinger's fun, but this is the one that really does it for me. Liar, Liar, and Donnie Brasco, just one of the great gangster movies of all time. And you see, when you think of Al Pacino in a gangster movie, yes, you kind of still think of The Godfather, you think of Carlito's Way, you think of Scarface, and this is a kind of gangster role that he has that is way different from that. So it was really interesting to see him take on, a less kind of mafia boss type of character, like the man in charge. He's a little bit more street level, so it just kind of adds a different dynamic to it. Anyways, those are some of my favorites. What about you guys? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.